Here's your wrestling news for January 24th, 2023, and we're starting off today with Raw, as last night's 30-year anniversary event didn't see the much-anticipated steel cage match between Becky Lynch and Bayley. It was on the Raw after SummerSlam that Lynch was put on the shelf by Damage Control, and though she did return to get the win for Team Bianca inside War Games, Full Vengeance has continued to elude the man. For weeks, Damage Control has had her number, and that continued during last night's episode of the Red Brand. After the cage was erected, Bayley was in the ring waiting for her opponent, but as Lynch made her way down, she was jumped by Dakota Kai and Io Sky. The numbers once again were too much for the valiant Lynch, as Damage Control laid out the man before throwing her into the cage and continuing their attack. This assault would only end when Adam Pearce came down and broke open the lock to the cage door, as Damage Control climbed over the top to escape. The match was somewhat controversially called off, meaning fans at home didn't get to see the cage match, and not only did the fans in Philly not get it either, but they had a chunk of their time wasted with the putting up and taking down of the cage. Judging by the reaction online, fans were angry about this bait and switch, but why did this cage match not happen? Well, it turns out that the decision to not have the match wasn't one that was in the original script. Instead, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful reports that WWE did intend to have the match, but time constraints forced a decision to be made on the fly. The originally planned Becky Lynch vs. Bayley steel cage match was very abrupt, leading many to wonder if it had changed. Fightful Select has confirmed that the match and entrances were supposed to get 2 segments. However, the opening segment with the Bloodline trial ended up going long, and several segments needed trimmed. We are told this affected the Bayley vs. Becky Lynch cage match the most, and they either could work an angle to set up to a full-on match, or end up doing a cage match that lasted a minute or two. The end result was the angle that we saw. There were no injuries in the segment, as some had wondered. Fans may not have liked being cheated out of a cage match, but we imagine a cage match lasting 60 seconds would have been much more negatively reviewed, and we're sure that a high-profile match between Lynch and Bayley will happen eventually. Well, what do you think? Was WWE right to scrap this match, or should they have gone ahead with what was advertised even if it was short? Sound off in the comments. Raw also saw an appearance from The Undertaker, but this wasn't the macabre dead man fans saw throughout much of his career. Interrupting a segment with L.A. Knight and Bray Wyatt, the American Badass rode in on his motorcycle and delivered a hellacious chokeslam to Knight. After Wyatt hit Sister Abigail on Knight, The Undertaker whispered something in Wyatt's ear and has now reacted to the segment. Reacting to a tweet of the segment, Undertaker said how there are moments that define the industry, and that one with Bray was special. We don't know what The Undertaker told Bray, but we imagine Wyatt will be taking the Phenom's advice seriously, as he hopes to have a career matching that of the legendary Deadman. The Undertaker and Wyatt were able to share the ring during this week's Raw, but it's hardly the first time they've done just that. The Eater of Worlds and the Phenom are no strangers, having feuded together in 2015, but the pair were incredibly close behind the scenes. WrestleVotes reports that after the duo's match at WrestleMania 31, the Deadman asked Vince McMahon to take care of Wyatt, who Undertaker saw as immensely talented. For that WrestleMania match, Wyatt went in with a severely injured ankle, but went ahead with the match to put the Undertaker over, something the Phenom surely appreciated. In the years since then, the Undertaker has been a staunch supporter of Wyatt, but his advice to McMahon didn't stop Vince releasing Bray in July 2021. Now Wyatt is back with WWE and receiving plenty of focus again, and we can only hope that those decision makers in the promotion listen to The Undertaker's advice from all those years ago. What do you think of The Undertaker showing his support to Wyatt in this way? Let us know in the comments. For years, fans have speculated on a possible match between The Rock and Roman Reigns, and it wasn't too long ago that this match seemed likely to happen. Unfortunately, it was reported last week that the Brahma Bull feels he will not be in ring shape in time for WrestleMania 39, but WWE has one hell of a backup plan. It was in December that it was first reported that WWE were looking at their options for Reigns, if not The Rock, and Fightful Select reports that another legend of the Attitude Era may be stepping in to fill the Great One's spot. Fightful Select has learned that a pitch was made internally for a huge opponent for Stone Cold Steve Austin, which Fightful Select was told was Roman Reigns. We are told at the very least, Austin's camp was approached with the possibility of it happening, which was said to have been for enormous money. In the summer of 2022, Fightful reported that Austin was approached with a deal that wasn't as appealing from a financial standpoint. Those that we spoke to in WWE claimed that they hadn't heard back on whether the more recent offer was accepted or not, and another source indicated that another big name was offered to Austin in the months prior. Austin wrestled for the first time in 19 years at last year's WrestleMania, defeating Kevin Owens in a match that blew the high expectations of fans out of the water. With that said, Austin was very hesitant about getting in the ring for the match, and it was reported that even up until the day of the show, there were concerns that he would change his mind. Now the Rattlesnake has proven he can still go in the ring, and if the Reigns vs. Rock match isn't going to happen, then it could be the Tribal Chief versus the Texas Rattlesnake this April. Earlier this month, Grayson Waller challenged for the NXT Championship but was unable to secure a victory over Bron Breakker. Waller's loss came with controversy as the ring rope snapped and he was counted out, and the Australian's issues with the champ are far from over. At the WWE Performance Center, the so-called face of NXT confronted Breakker and enraged the NXT champion by throwing water bottles at him. The two didn't take long to brawl, and this scene was only broken up after multiple NXT talents, including Odyssey Jones, got involved. The entire ordeal was captured on camera by NXT process Alexa Sleet, who was on Instagram Live when the fight took place. Waller is arguably the top heel in NXT today and has mastered riling up the fans, so it should come as no surprise that his heel antics have spread past what fans see on TV. Breakker and Waller will meet again at February 4th's NXT Vengeance Day inside a steel cage, and it's clear to see that the champion and the challenger are ready to throw down with the NXT title on the line again. Back to Raw now, as Triple H hosted a DX reunion this week, which thankfully went better than the last time we saw the group on the red brand. In fact, this DX segment wasn't really about DX, but rather the superstars who appeared, including a cameo by Kurt Angle. What fans may not have noticed, though, was Triple H's character-breaking line, as when those in the ring called for a match between Imperium and the Street Profits to be made official, everyone turned to look at the game. Responding, Triple H said that this booking stuff isn't easy, referencing his real-life role as WWE's head of creative. Ultimately, the segment did end with a match, with the Profits teaming with Seth Rollins to face Imperium. There would have been a time when DX would have laid out everyone and got the last laugh, but the group heartily acknowledged their age and lack of ability to hang with the younger talent. Triple H has been head of creative since last July and has been widely praised for his work in the role, and this line made for quite the character-breaking moment for the King of Kings. Going into Raw, there was a ton of talk about the fate of Sami Zayn, who was on trial by the Bloodline for his actions as of late. Zayn has been at odds with the group ever since he took the pin against John Cena and Kevin Owens on the final SmackDown of 2022, and what fans saw last night was an incredible segment. Paul Heyman spoke first, comparing Zayn to Judas, and claimed that the honorary Uce has been working with Owens since the very beginning. Lashing back, Zayn said that Heyman was a snitch and had nothing to say in his defense, and fans online loved what they were seeing. On social media, fans called the segment Oscar-worthy, with some saying they were genuinely tearing up at the emotions that were on display in the ring. Others said how the Bloodline has been one of the greatest storylines in WWE history, all while the segment was still going on. Reigns became enraged by Sami and ordered Solo to take him out, but just when it looked like the honorary Uce was done for, Jey Uso made the save. The man who was once the most hostile to Zayn, Jey poured his heart out to defend Sami, and with the fans' support, Reigns declared Sami not guilty, at least for the time being. It was stated that Sami will face his final test this Saturday at the Royal Rumble, and what did you think of this segment? And what do you think will be Zayn's final test this weekend? After this weekend's Royal Rumble, the next big stop on the road to WrestleMania will be Elimination Chamber, which will take place in Montreal. The show will mark WWE's first premium live event since Breaking Point in 2009, and Montreal just happens to be the hometown of Sami Zayn. Many expect Zayn to be a big part of the show, and that looks to be the case, as this week, the chair designs featuring the Elimination Chamber poster were leaked online. Sure enough, the poster features Zayn front and center, with the honorary Uce trapped inside one of the chamber pods. While the poster features Sami in a pod, the popular theory is that he will challenge Roman Reigns for the title next month, but whatever happens, Zayn will have a big role to play at Elimination Chamber. Back to Raw, and the US title scene has certainly been busy as of late, with Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley, and Seth Rollins all vying for the championship. Last night's Raw saw Lashley challenge Theory for the gold, and it was at the start of Raw that it was revealed this match would be no disqualifications. Lashley explained to Kathy Kelly that he wanted the stip so that he wouldn't be disqualified for his actions in the match, and the match went pretty well, though both men used little weapons. It was in the closing moments that Lashley caught Theory in the Hurt Lock, the same move that won him his first WWE Championship in March 2021, but Bobby's focus was broken by the sound of Brock Lesnar's theme. Emerging for the first time since Crown Jewel, Lesnar laid out Lashley and Theory with F5s, but placed Theory on top, allowing the champ to retain. Lashley and Lesnar have one win over the other each, though both matches ended in controversy, and it's clear that the feud between these two legitimate tough men is far from over. More from Raw, as Hulk Hogan was on last night's show, but things didn't exactly go to plan for the two-time Hall of Famer. Kicking off the show with his longtime manager Jimmy Hart, Hogan welcomed fans to the show, but his promo went awry when his microphone died and had to be replaced by a new one. One of Hogan's most fearsome rivals, the Iron Sheik, was watching from home and spotted the glitch, and on Twitter said that even the microphone knows the Hulkster is a jabroni. Sheik's vitriol to Hogan knows no end, as the former WWF champion has spent years taking digs at the Hulkster on social media. With Hogan being a controversial figure to a lot of fans, WWE uses the two-time Hall of Famer sparingly, but you can be certain that the Iron Sheik will have something to say the next time Hulk Hogan is on TV. And we're ending today with Nick Khan, WWE CEO, who recently had some comments to make about AEW's president, Tony Khan. Speaking on the Bill Simmons podcast, Nick said that though he's never met Tony, he's sure that the AEW head is a nice kid, words that some have taken as condescending. Speaking on his drive-thru podcast this week, Jim Cornette weighed in about the two Khans, arguing that Nick's comments show that WWE doesn't take TK seriously. WWE has given themselves more trouble over the last 3 years than AEW has, either through the bad booking or Vince's public shenanigans. So I think what Nick Khan is, referring to in very thin-veiled threats is what I'm trying to say, that they don't take Tony Khan seriously, and they are talking about billions of dollars in a worldwide global business and not. He has all the respect in the world for the guy's dad. Guy's dad is giving the kids some money to play with, and that's what they've got. Tony Khan isn't exactly quiet when it comes to WWE's CEO, cutting a scathing promo on Nick in 2021 and calling WWE's CEO a con man. Right now, WWE remains the biggest wrestling promotion in the world, but Tony Khan is looking to change that. And we'll have to see how that nice kid does in his journey to #1.